Hi everyone. I've just put together a couple of quick demos to show you how you can take your letterhead, business card, and envelope from Illustrator, bring it into Photoshop, and then apply it to a mock-up template there in Photoshop. First, let's start with the Illustrator version. This is actually a letterhead that was designed by students for a real client a few years ago in one of my classes. I went ahead and added a letter onto the letterhead. I would recommend you do that because I think it's good to show the letterhead as it functions, not as a blank piece of paper, but how clients would actually receive it. Same thing with the envelope. I would put an address on the envelope so that you can again show how it functions. A couple things about this letterhead first is just about design as well, even though we're going to get to later about how to apply it in Photoshop to the template. I want to show you a little bit of finesse that happens. This is a typography class after all that you do with type in these kinds of circumstances, especially where you've got numbers, addresses, things like that, where you've got numbers and upper and lower case set together. Right now, this text is 8-point text. All of the text is 8 points here. The problem is that numbers end up looking like a series of all caps right next to the upper and lower case. And many of you are aware when you're texting and you're texting upper and lower case, and then all of a sudden you go to all caps, it stands out and it seems like somebody's shouting. That happens a little bit too when you're dealing with type where you're setting numbers with upper and lower case. So one of the ways to fix that is to go in and perhaps reduce the scale of those numbers just slightly. At this scale, since it's 8 points, I'm probably going to go to 7.5 points on that. It's a small change, but it's those small things that refine the text and make it better in that way. And I'm going to go ahead and do that with the other instances of these all cap, if you will, numbers. For this one, I'm just going to select that and then sample the one that I'd already changed. And then I'll do that again with this set as well. And it's not really even noticeable. And I guess that's really the point, is to make sure that those numbers don't stand out, seeming to be overly large in this case. So just a small reduction depending on the size of the type. Again, you could go to 1 or even just a half a point difference will make a huge difference in how the type appears. So this is an 8.5 by 11, and that is standard here in US and also in Canada. But that's really not what's used in most of the world. And to be fair, the mock-ups that I was able to find, almost all of them used A4, which is an international standard for the letterhead. Not a difficult thing to change. Tell you what, I'll show you what we're going to do with that. I've got nothing selected right now, so my document setup comes up here in the properties palette. I'm going to go to the document setup. I'm going to edit the artboards here. And where it says 8.5 by 11 inches, I'm just going to change that to 210 millimeters. Make sure you type in the mm or you'll get 210 inches. And then I'll move to the next one and go 297 millimeters. And that is an A4 size paper. You can tell that it's taller and thinner. So I'll scroll back a little bit. That's going to require me to do some minor changes to my design. I'll move this up a bit in the space. Maybe move this down a bit in the space. And there we go. So now I've got my A4 letterhead. Now I don't have any color on this, and actually the client wanted it on white paper. But if you were going to have a paper color that you'd be printing onto, say a cream or something like that, then you'd want to go ahead and put that color into the background here. Simple to do. Again, I've got this. I'm going to go ahead and put a rectangle just by putting this on the corner and clicking. And then I'll type in the width, which is 210 millimeters. And then I'll go to the next one, which is 297 millimeters. And that's the A4 size. And I'll say OK. And there we've got our color that we can put in the paper. I can go then to Object, Arrange, and Send to Back. And now it's in the back of that. Obviously, that's not a good color for this thing, but if I wanted to, I can obviously go and find a better color for that and have that work. Now, I don't really want a color. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you in Photoshop how to put a laid paper texture on this. So I'm going to get rid of the color here, not by deleting the rectangle, but I'm going to go here and deselect or hit none so there's no color in there. And I want to leave that rectangle there because when I bring this into Photoshop, what Photoshop doesn't recognize is the edges of the artboard here. So if I've got it set up with this rectangle, then it will recognize that when I bring it into Photoshop. So here we've got our A4 size page that's ready to go into Photoshop and get placed. I'm going to go quickly and look here. Here's a business card, same kind of thing. We're going to do the same kind of thing here. I'm not going to put the rectangle on this one though, and I'll show you why in the next video when we get into placing these things into Photoshop.